Good evening once again from the National Weather Service office in Lake Charles, Louisiana. I'm meteorologist Donald Jones, and unlike our earlier briefing, I think I've fixed my microphone problem. So hopefully you can hear me better this evening than you could for our earlier briefing earlier this morning. I do have an update on the potential winter weather that we're expecting to see across the region this weekend. Not a whole lot has changed between our morning briefing and now, but there have been a few updates. The biggest of which, right off the top, is going to be the fact that it looks like temperatures during the day on Saturday are going to be a little bit warmer. At least that's how models have been trending through the day. So we may not see too much in the way of freezing rain during the day on Saturday. Now, as we get into Saturday evening, Saturday night, Sunday morning, as those temperatures drop to and below freezing, we'll start to see any precipitation begin to transition over into that freezing rain category. So expect ice accumulation to begin Saturday, we'll call it late afternoon into Saturday night. But if you have travel plans during the day on Saturday, especially across Southwest Louisiana, it's looking a little more optimistic for as far as the roadways during the day on Saturday. Now, up towards central Louisiana, perhaps a little bit more dicey. We are expecting more in the way of accumulation and the more in the way of overall risks up across parts of central Louisiana, interior parts of southeast Texas, so Jasper, Newton, over towards Alexandria, DeRidder. Those areas are going to be at higher overall risk. We'll talk about that here in just a minute. Those of us along the I-10 corridor, so here in Lake Charles, over towards Beaumont, Lafayette, those areas, not out of the woods as far as the potential for some ice accumulation, but we're not expecting as much ice accumulation as we're expecting further north. North Louisiana, definitely under the gun for a significant ice event. Central Louisiana, also at this point expected to see some significant ice accumulation. Still a possibility of some ice accumulation along the I-10 corridor, but perhaps not quite as much as they're going to see for areas further north. We're going to talk about all of that as well as the expected impacts across our area. And regardless of how much ice we do see, we are going to be looking at some bitterly cold temperatures rolling into the area this weekend. And it's going to stick around at least through the middle of next week. We're going to be looking at lows in the lower 20s overnight. Temperatures, especially Sunday into Monday, are unlikely to rise above freezing, or if they do, it's only going to be for a very short duration for just a couple of hours during the afternoon before quickly falling below freezing again. So that's just as big of a story as the potential for ice is going to be the extreme cold, at least for this area, that we're expected to see here over the next few days. We're going to talk about all of that here over the next few minutes. As always, this is a live interactive briefing, so if you have any questions as we go through our briefing, feel free to post them in our comment section. I see plenty of you have already found it over there, and I'll be happy to answer those just as soon as we wrap up our briefing. Let me go ahead and jump into the screen behind me here. And if you were with us this morning, not a whole lot has changed here. Again, we are expecting a cold front to roll through the area sometime late Friday night, and behind it will be some pretty gusty winds. We'll be looking at some winds gusting over 20 miles an hour, and those gusty winds are going to bring in much, much colder air for early Saturday morning, and that air is going to continue to filter in through the day on Saturday. So we're going to be cold pretty much all day Saturday, but I think we are going to be above freezing across most of the area. In fact, areas closer to the coast may wind up in the 40s, so that's certainly going to be too warm for any freezing rain or ice accumulation during the day on Saturday. But then as we get into Saturday evening, those temperatures are going to quickly drop below freezing. That is when the bigger overall risk for our freezing rain and our ice accumulation is going to be. As I mentioned, very cold temperatures, regardless of precipitation, are going to filter in behind this front. We'll be looking at low temperatures in the lower 20s, and those wind chill values, when you add in those 20-mile-an-hour wind gusts, are going to be in the lower teens to perhaps single digits across the region. With and my little clicker's not working. I don't know why. That's okay. We'll do it this way. So as a result, we actually have two advisories and/or watches that have been put into effect here this afternoon. The first is going to be a winter storm watch. This covers pretty much the entire region with the exception of the immediate coastline. So Cameron Parish, you're not included in this. Lower Jefferson County, you're not in this, but Upper Jefferson County is. So that's basically Beaumont North. Most of, actually all of Vermilion Parish, Iberia, St. Mary, and Lower St. Martin, you are not included in this winter storm watch. But the rest of the region, Southeast Texas, Central Louisiana, Southwest Louisiana, and most of Acadiana are under this winter storm watch for the possibility of those freezing rain conditions. Now, this begins noon Saturday and goes until 6 p.m. on Sunday. Now, it's not going to be freezing rain for that entire period. It is going to be on and off. So it's not something that's going to start like we saw this afternoon where it just kind of started raining and just kept on going for hours and hours. I'll show you the radar here of that here in just a second as well. So it is going to be kind of on and off, but we could be looking at freezing rain to as late as 6 p.m. Sunday before the moisture finally gets out of here and the freezing rain threat comes to an end. Of course, the ice that's left behind is going to have the potential to linger as we're going to be below freezing pretty much all day Sunday night into Monday. So any ice that develops either Saturday evening, Saturday night, Sunday, whatever's left on the ground is going to stay on the ground Sunday night into Monday. So if there's ice on the ground Sunday, there's almost certainly going to be ice on the ground again on Monday. Just something to kind of keep in mind. Now, I can't tell you for certain whether that's going to happen or not, but when we're starting to talk about schools for the new work week and people going to work, I guess that is the positive news that whatever is going to happen, we're going to know whether ice and or roads are going to be closed on Sunday. And if they are closed on Sunday, they're going to be closed on Monday as well, at least through the first half of the day or so. In addition to the winter storm watch, we also have a cold weather advisory. This is issued anytime we're expecting temperatures at or below 20, I think it's 20 degrees across most of the area. Temperatures or wind chills. So it's the wind chills that we're concerned about. We're going to be looking at temperatures in the lower 20s, but those wind chill values are going to have the potential to be in the lower teens or perhaps even the single digits, especially we go into Sunday and Monday. So we've got this cold weather advisory now in effect for the entire region all the way down to the Gulf Coast. Let's take a look as far as the timing goes for the potential freezing rain. And I mentioned that it's a little bit less likely during the day Saturday. So what we're going to be looking at right now is the chances of the freezing rain beginning are going to be highest from Saturday evening and continuing through Sunday morning and eventually tapering off through Sunday afternoon. So again, that winter storm watch goes until 6 p.m. on Sunday. That's kind of the latest that we expect the any kind of precipitation, frozen precipitation to be falling. But the majority of it is going to be falling between Saturday evening and Sunday morning. So that kind of gives you at least a general idea. I don't want to get too specific in terms of, breaking it down by individual hours here. We're still 3 days out from this event. So it's a little too early to start talking about that, getting that specific. But that does kind of give you at least hopefully a general idea of what to expect as far as timing. I'm not going to linger too much. We already talked about what was causing it pretty much. We've got this cold front coming through. Now, this is kind of our first estimate as far as total ice accumulation. What's important to keep in mind while we're looking at this graphic is this is very much subject to change. And what I want you to focus on here is not the exact numbers, just kind of the trend. So as you can see, the areas highlighted in red. Red means bad. Red is dangerous. Those are the areas that are expecting to see the most potential ice accumulation. So areas across central Louisiana, interior parts of southeast Texas could be looking at a 1/4 inch or more of ice accumulation. This is kind of an ideal negative setup where we see temperatures below freezing for a long duration, and we see a lot of that precipitation just kind of setting up over central Louisiana. We could be looking at a 1/4 up to a 1/2 inch of freezing rain and ice accumulation. Further south, you can see those numbers taper. So we are expecting less overall potential ice as we get down towards the I-10 corridor. So Beaumont, Lake Charles, we're towards Jennings, Lafayette. We're expecting significantly less ice along the I-10 corridor. And then further south along the immediate coastline, Cameron, Vermilion, Iberia, St. Mary, we're not expecting much, if any, ice accumulation. It's not out of the realm of possibility. We could see a brief period of freezing rain, but at least for right now, we're not expecting enough freezing rain down that way to cause any kind of significant impacts. The biggest impacts, at least for the area that we cover, is going to be across central Louisiana and interior parts of southeast Texas. So Jasper, Newton, Woodville, and most of, say, Tyler, Jasper, and Newton counties in southeast Texas, with the overall risk decreasing as we get closer to the coast. Now, it's not to say that we couldn't potentially see some impacts along the I-10 corridor. It's just looking like the higher risk and the most significant impacts are going to be further off to the north. Let's take a look at the timing of the precipitation, because the timing of the precipitation is going to inform the timing of the freezing rain, because one informs the other. So obviously we've got rainfall, very high rain chances this evening and this afternoon. That was expected. This is a completely different system, though. This is actually associated with a coastal low that's moving up the Texas Gulf Coast. So it's a completely different feature that's eventually going to get swept out by the cold front as it comes through Friday night into early Saturday morning. So you can see we're going to have some decent rain chances as we go through the day tomorrow, 30 to 40%. And there's going to be a little bit of a tapering period as we go through tomorrow night into Friday morning. Then we're going to start to see the rain approach associated with the cold front moving through late Friday night. But we are still going to be looking at very high rain chances going through the day on Saturday. And once we get those temperatures dropping below freezing on Saturday, which looks like it's going to be sometime probably late Saturday afternoon, probably somewhere 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the afternoon and evening, that's when we're going to start to see that precipitation transfer over or transition over to freezing rain at that point. You can see by 6 p.m. where the sun will be down, the temperatures will be dropping very fast by that point. We're still looking at an 80 to 90% chance of rain across much of the region, and any of that rain will be transitioning over to freezing rain at that point. Pretty much the same thing for Southeast Texas. We're still looking at very high rain chances going into Saturday afternoon, into Saturday evening, when those temperatures drop below freezing. Now, not everybody's going to see it, but there will be quite a bit of precipitation, or at least we're expecting quite a bit of precipitation to still be around by Saturday evening into Sunday morning, and that is going to be our time frame for potential freezing rain and ice accumulation. Now, let's talk about the probabilities of this actually occurring. I just realized I've got these comments all covering me up here. That's okay. You don't need to see me anyway. So taking a look at this graphic here, we're just showing these are the probabilities of seeing any amount of measurable ice accumulation with this event. You can see, obviously, as we've been talking about, the highest overall risk is going to be further to the north across central Louisiana, and it's actually going to be even higher across North Louisiana and over towards central and northern Mississippi. This event is actually going to cover a large swath of the southeastern U.S. This is going to move all the way over into Georgia and perhaps even into South Carolina. So this is going to be a very large event, all of which could potentially see some combination of freezing rain, sleet, and or snow. Now, we're not expecting any kind of snow around here. I wouldn't rule out some kind of sleet pellets mixed in with this freezing rain, but the majority of our activity is going to be in the form of freezing rain. So you can see we're looking at roughly about a 60 to 80, 85% chance of seeing some amount of freezing rain across central Louisiana and interior parts of southeast Texas. Those probabilities come down, though, as we get basically between the Highway 190 corridor and the I-10 corridor. We're looking at between about a 30 to 60% chance. So call it a coin flip at this point across those areas. And then along the immediate coastline, we'll be looking at a 0 to 25% chance. So gradually decreasing as we get closer to the coast. And this is just for any amount of measurable ice accumulation. If we're talking about less than about 1/10 of an inch of ice accumulation, you're not going to see significant impacts from that. You're probably not going to get road closures if you only have a 5/100ths or thereabouts of an inch. Not going to see significant power outages. So you really need to get to about 1/10 of an inch before we start potentially seeing some significant impact. So here are the probabilities of seeing at least 1/10 of an inch. And it kind of breaks down very similar to what we just talked about here. We're looking at about a 50 to 70% chance roughly along and north of the Highway 190 corridor. Between Highway 190 and I-10, we're looking at roughly a 20 to 40% chance. And then south of I-10, we're looking at roughly about a 0 to 20% chance of 1/10 of an inch. So again, probability is much higher across central Louisiana, 20 to 40% along the I-10 corridor. So, it's more likely than not that we're going to see less than 1/10 of an inch of that. So that's not to say that it couldn't happen, because it very well could. But right now, it's less likely that we would see that much. Getting even higher, once we start getting into about 1/4 inch of ice accumulation, this is when we start talking about widespread power outages, branches starting to fall off of trees due to the weight of that ice accumulation. You can see we're looking at roughly about a 30 to 50% chance of greater than 1/4 inch of ice accumulation across central Louisiana. So roughly about a 40 to 50% chance up near the Alexandria area. Again, between I-10 and Highway 190, we're looking at roughly about a 10 to 30% chance of seeing a quarter inch or more of ice accumulation. And then south of I-10, generally less than a 10% chance. You can see roughly about only a 3 to 5% chance down across coastal portions of Jefferson County and Cameron Parish. Then taking a look at the probability of a ½ inch of ice accumulation. This would be pretty crippling to anyone who sees this amount of ice accumulation, but we're looking at roughly about a 5 to 20% chance north of Highway 190. And then we're looking at essentially south of Highway 190 to the coast, a 0 to 2% chance. So other than central Louisiana and points further north, we're not expecting this much, at least not at this point, anywhere south of Highway 190. All right, now I just want to talk really quickly. I talked about this earlier, and I just want to jump through this again really fast. Just why are we looking at freezing rain? Why isn't this snow? Why isn't this sleet? Why is it freezing rain instead? Because what's going to happen here is we're going to have a setup where we're going to have a very shallow layer of cold air, of sub-freezing air, close to the surface. Now, this layer of air is only going to be a few hundred feet deep, from the surface to a few hundred feet off the ground. Above that, you can see by the center graphic here, the graphic in the middle, we're going to have a deep layer of temperatures that are above freezing. And then on top of that, another cold layer. So that's where the snow or where the precipitation is going to develop. It's going to develop initially as snow up here in the clouds, essentially. And then it's going to fall through this layer of above freezing air, melt off into a raindrop, and then it's going to push through this very small cold layer here right near the surface. And what's going to happen here is as it falls, that cold layer liquid in this area, and then as it falls through this cold layer, it's going to drop below freezing, the temperature of the water droplet, but because of the shape, the curvature of the rain droplet, it actually become what's called super cooled. So it's going to be below freezing, but it's still going to be in a liquid state. Yes, such a thing can happen. It does anytime we have freezing rain. And that's because the shape of a raindrop. It's kind of that teardrop shape that gives it the ability to remain liquid even at a cooler temperature. But what happens is once the raindrop hits anything, whether the ground or a tree branch or your car or whatever the case may be, that shape is broken. And then it splatters all over the place and immediately freezes. So that's what happens when we're talking about freezing rain. And this is the setup that we're expecting to see with this event this weekend. If it were to remain below freezing throughout the atmospheric column from the cloud all the way to the ground, then we'd be looking at snow. If we had a deeper cold layer here where it was below freezing for, say, a couple of thousand feet before getting to the ground, that's when we'd see that liquid particle refreeze into a sleet pellet. So I think there is the possibility that we could have a little bit of sleet mixed in with this freezing rain, just depending on how that cold air layer, the depth of it, how it fluctuates. But it looks like the majority of this activity is going to be freezing rain. So there's your meteorology lesson for the evening. You can't say you didn't learn something from me. All right, let's go ahead and talk now about the temperatures a little bit, and then we'll talk more about the freezing rain again. But I want to show you here what we're expecting as far as the temperatures, because they are going to be pretty significant here. Let me move me out of the way here so you can see the numbers. This is the Southwest Louisiana forecast temperatures over the next few days. You can see we are going to be looking at the area falling below freezing, especially central Louisiana. You can see falling as below freezing as early as noon on Saturday. And if that verifies, if that winds up being the case, then we could be looking at that freezing rain beginning a little bit earlier in the day on Saturday. The current thinking is that the majority of the area, though, is going to remain above freezing, at least until Saturday afternoon into early Saturday evening. And then we're going to fall very well below freezing across pretty much the entire region Saturday night into Sunday. You can see plenty of 20s across there. We've got actually down to 20 and close to some upper teens as we get into Sunday morning. But you can see during the day Sunday, we stay pretty much below freezing the entire day. Then we drop even colder back into the 20s again Sunday night into Monday. And we may get above freezing for a brief period sometime Monday afternoon after literal noon. Sometime between about noon and 6 p.m. We may rise above freezing in some locations, but some locations may even stay below freezing the entire day on Monday as well. And then, of course, going into Monday night and Tuesday, we're going to drop back into the 20s. Tuesday afternoon, again, another couple of hours, few hours above freezing. Tuesday night into Wednesday, this air mass is going to stick around. I don't have it here, but we are going to be looking at several days of this very cold air. It's going to stick around at least until Wednesday. I don't have the graphic going all the way out, but it is going to be very cold. The question is, how long consecutive hours is it going to stay below freezing? Because that's going to have a significant impact about any ice accumulation that develops. Is it going to have any opportunity to melt off at any point? So that's why I was saying at the top of the broadcast here that if we do see freezing rain either Saturday night or Sunday, and we stay below freezing going into Sunday night, that ice is going to remain on roads or wherever it's accumulated on, at least until probably sometime Monday afternoon. Now, once we add in, I said we were going to be looking at some pretty breezy conditions. Someone was asking me about wind earlier this morning. We are going to be looking at some wind gusts, 20 miles an hour plus in some locations. And then once we add those into our temperatures, we get our feels like temperatures, our wind chill, and we're going to be looking at those wind chill values. Look at that as we go into, actually, this is still the wind here. That's more wind gusts. Let me get the wind chill. There we go. Okay, so look as we go into Saturday night, you've got some teens as early as 6 p.m. Saturday evening with those winds. And then we're looking at lower teens, possibly single digit feels like temperatures as we get into Sunday morning. So this is going to be very, very cold. Same thing as we get into Sunday night into Monday morning. You can see plenty of single digit wind chills for those feels like temperatures. So that's certainly something to keep in mind. You do not want to be outdoors in this for any extended length of time without being properly clothed for it. You know, make sure to check on the elderly, the homeless, you know, those that are particularly susceptible to cold this time of year, and who may not have adequate clothing. This is definitely going to be a hazard for those groups of people. Taking a look at the Southeast Texas temperatures and wind chills, we're looking at pretty much the same thing. So again, as we get into Saturday night, we'll be in the 30s. By early Sunday morning, we'll be back close to 20, between about 20 and 25 degrees. Same thing going into Sunday night and Monday. We'll be looking at anywhere from the mid-teens to the lower 20s for those actual temperatures. And then when we add in those winds, which again are going to be in the 20 mile an hour range for Saturday night into Sunday, but still gusting to 15 Sunday night into Monday. So it's going to stay kind of breezy. We'll be looking at those wind chill values even across Southeast Texas in the teens to perhaps a few single digits, especially Sunday night into Monday across Southeast Texas as well. So it is going to be very, very cold, regardless of whether we see any actual freezing rain across the area. So this is going to be one of the other big questions as far as how long we're going to have any kind of ice concerns, is how long are we going to stay below freezing? So essentially, we're going to have this cold front roll through late Friday night into early Saturday morning. So the time below freezing is going to be mainly after midnight, Friday night into Saturday morning, you know, for this first graphic here. So essentially from roughly about, you know, midnight through about 7 or 8 a.m. That's why we're looking at that approximate 7 hours below freezing across central Louisiana. Now, as we get into Saturday afternoon, we're going to drop below freezing fairly quickly, and we're going to stay below freezing, if not all the way through Sunday, then through the vast majority of it. You can see 24 consecutive hours below freezing for central Louisiana and interior parts of Southeast Texas, 14 to 18 hours below freezing, say along the I-10 corridor to Highway 190, and still 9 to 10 hours below freezing all the way to the coastline. So this is pipe busting weather. You definitely want to take precautions to protect any kind of exposed pipes. Essentially from Saturday morning all the way through really about Wednesday or Thursday of this upcoming week, because we're going to be looking at a long duration period of very cold temperatures here. Going into Sunday into noon Monday, you can see most of the area showing 24. So that's the entire 24-hour period of staying below freezing. So we could potentially be looking at anywhere from, you know, 36 to 48 consecutive hours below freezing for a pretty good swath of the entire region. And even when we do eventually get above freezing, it's only going to be for maybe 3-4 hours or so at most. That will help some of the ice begin to melt off, but it may very well freeze again once we drop below freezing. And then, of course, once we drop below freezing again, you are going to have the risk of pipe busting conditions once again. And that's going to continue, like I said, through at least Wednesday. So be prepared for at least 5 good days of pipe protection from the freezing conditions. All right, so let's talk now about what kind of impacts we can potentially see from freezing rain. Now, I'm not going to say that everybody is going to see this, because no, not everybody is going to see this here. This is kind of a worst case scenario. If you see roughly anywhere more than about 1/10 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch. These are some of the issues that you could run into. Obviously the layer of ice on roads leading to loss of traction. Roads may become impassable and subject to being closed. Not everybody's going to see that. It's not going to happen everywhere. It is more likely across central Louisiana, but it's not out of the realm of possibility all the way down to the I-10 corridor, just depending on exactly how much ice we actually see accumulate. Ice does accumulate on power lines, which increases the weight. Water is very heavy, even in its frozen state, and that will cause power lines to collapse. And that leads to power outages. In some cases, widespread power outages, depending on how much ice is actually observed. If there's an area that winds up with 1/4 of an inch of ice, that is almost certainly going to result in some widespread power outages. And the other thing to keep in mind with this is we talked earlier about how large this system is going to be and how large of an area it's going to impact geographically all the way over towards Georgia and the Carolinas. Areas that do potentially lose power, normally in something like a hurricane, we have electrical trucks that are able to stage and stand by and come in and start to make those repairs almost immediately afterwards. In this case, because we're talking about such a large geographical area that may not necessarily be immediately available outside of the area, because a lot of those mutual aid groups that we rely on will be tending to their own potential electricity disruption. So just something to kind of keep in mind. I don't have too much detail on that. It's just something I was thinking about that could be an issue with this because it's such a large system. Ice does accumulate on tree branches. Essentially, the ice is going to freeze to whatever it touches as it's falling. So eventually, you are going to potentially get a lot of weight on tree branches that can cause them to fall, and they could fall into power lines. They could fall on top of your vehicle if you're underneath a tree. So my advice is to move vehicles away from trees if at all possible. And ideally, you'd want to move them inside some kind of shelter if you could, because as the next little dot there is, you will get a glaze of ice that'll develop on your windshield and potentially freeze your doors closed so you can't even get into your vehicle. So that is an issue. That's an issue that I've dealt with personally in previous ice storms. So it's certainly something that could occur with this event, depending on exactly how much ice we see. So what can you do to prepare between now and then? So number one, have an alternative source of keeping warm in the event of power outages. So that could be a fireplace, either wood or gas. Although wood tends to put out a little bit more heat, but whatever you got available is what you got at the point in time. A generator will also work. You can run some kind of space heater or small heating unit off of that. I always bring up now, especially since we had several fatalities related to people using generators in their homes after Hurricane Laura. Do not use generators indoors. The electricity, you're going to run an electrical line into your house, but the generator is to remain outside at all times. It produces carbon monoxide, and that can kill you if that's confined indoors. Same thing with natural gas, same thing with propane, same thing with kerosene. Somebody was asking about a kerosene lamp this morning. Kerosene produces carbon monoxide too. So that's not the type of thing that's meant to be used indoors. You want to use those outdoors only. Same thing with gas-powered grills. Those also produce carbon monoxide. So anything that burns fuel needs to be kept outside, at least the actual engine that's burning the fuel. Be prepared to be unable to travel for at least a couple of days. So have food, water on hand to potentially hunker down. Very similar to what you would do if you were hunkering down for a hurricane. And in the event of electrical outages, make sure that that food doesn't require a lot of heat or water for preparation. So snacks are a good thing. Chips, the health department's always on us about not eating processed foods, but in this case, there is a place for them when you don't have a lot of opportunity to actually prepare and heat food. So those chips and snacks and Little Debbie cakes and all those are good little things to keep you going, at least for a day or two until you can get back out. Somebody was laughing at me earlier when I put this on here, but have non-electronic sources of entertainment for your children so they don't drive you insane in the event that the power does go out. And then again, we were talking about earlier about tree branches potentially falling on trees or ice glaze on vehicles, tree branches falling on cars, I should say. it's a good idea if you have the opportunity to move vehicles into a garage, under a carport, some kind of safety. Someone asked me earlier today if a tarp or something, if they could put that over their vehicle. That is certainly good. That would keep the ice off of it. Just make sure you have a way to kind of attach it to your vehicle, because we were talking about those strong winds earlier, 20-mile-an-hour plus winds. Those will have the potential to blow those tarps away. So kind of keep that in mind. All right, so that's what we have here from the National Weather Service. That was a really long briefing, but we are going to plan on doing another one of these tomorrow morning. I'm planning on doing it right now at 11 a.m. If that changes, I will certainly let you know via social media and emails and all the different ways that I communicate with you. But in the meantime, for right now, we're planning on doing another one of these at 11 a.m. tomorrow morning. If you have any questions, feel free to stick around. I'll be happy to answer them for the next little while. Otherwise, we will see you back here tomorrow morning. So let me go ahead and back up here. I'm going to turn, if I can, the comments off of the little corner there. And let me see if I can find your questions. And if you do have a question that I can't get to on here, for what you see my email now in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, feel free to send me an email. I'd be happy to answer your questions that way. You can also send us a direct message on Facebook, X, and Instagram, so we can answer your questions that way if I do miss them for some reason on here, which I very well may, because I can't go all the way back to the beginning of the briefing to see all those questions. So let me see. A lot of comments and conversations here, which is fine. I'm just trying to find the questions. Let's see. Karen's asking about bridges. Bridges, as you know, all the little road signs will tell you, will freeze before roads that are attached to the ground. So that's going to be the case as well with this potential event. Again, the higher overall risk is going to be central Louisiana up towards Alexandria, where you're going to see more ice accumulation. But yes, bridges will be subject to potentially being closed if there starts to become ice accumulation on them. So yeah, that will be an issue anywhere that we see ice. Irene says, please don't buy up all the toilet paper. Toilet paper, necessary, not going to necessarily save you in an ice storm, but I suppose it's good to have. But yeah, we don't need to hoard toilet paper. Brian asks, what flavor of Zaps are the best to make it through the ice storm? I'll go with Voodoo, just because that's the first one that popped into my head. Brooklyn asks, will the winter storm watch get upgraded to a winter storm warning for Alexandria, Louisiana? It's very possible. If that's going to happen, it's probably going to happen Friday. We usually do the upgrade to warnings about 24 hours in advance of the onset of the event. So that would be sometime probably Friday afternoon. I wouldn't necessarily expect it to be upgraded to a warning tomorrow. We are still a little ways away from this event. This has been on a lot of people's radar for a long time, so we kind of started a little bit earlier than we might otherwise for this kind of event. But yeah, we've still got a couple of days to go. So if we're going to see an upgrade to a warning in Alexandria, which is certainly possible if the current trends continue, then we would see that probably sometime Friday afternoon. April asks, what are the thoughts on the ice chances going up in the sulfur area from what they are on the screen? It's possible. It's kind of the same thing when we're talking about hurricanes. Is there a chance it could, change direction, change speed? Yeah, of course. That's why we have computer model runs every 6 hours, and that's why we have constant data flowing in to those computer models to offer this greatest. Actually, the Hurricane Center, not the Hurricane Center, but the Hurricane Hunter aircraft actually went out to do a reconnaissance mission on this particular storm. I think they were flying off the Pacific coast to try to get more data for those computer models. I don't recall that having happened in the past, so it may have, and I just wasn't aware of it. But I found that kind of interesting that they actually sent out a reconnaissance aircraft to sample this storm to try to get more data into those computer models. But yeah, there certainly could be changes either up or down with this forecast. That's why it's a forecast, because it's if it was 100% certain, then we'd call it a nowcast. Lindsay says, how does it look in Houston Sunday coming home to Lake Charles from Houston? Well, Houston would have more details, but there is going to be the risk of at least some freezing rain in the Houston area as well. The overall probabilities are probably slightly lower than they are over this way, but I don't have a great answer for you because, I focus on this area here. I haven't really looked into too much detail in the Houston area. So my advice is to check with the Houston Weather Service office, and they should be able to guide you as far as Houston directly. As far as traveling, say down I-10 coming from Houston to Lake Charles, on Sunday, you would potentially be looking at some ice and possibly some road closures right now. We're looking at roughly about a 20 to 40% chance of some amount of ice accumulation, and probably about a 20-ish% chance of enough ice accumulation to close roads. So it's not likely, but it is possible. Brittany says, we have an event on Saturday evening, 7 to 11 p.m. We considered moving it to sooner at like 5 p.m. Will it be safe to travel in Lake Charles to Westlake at 5 p.m.? That's probably going to be about the time the rain is going to be transitioning over to freezing rain. So at that point, I would imagine it's pretty likely that all roads would be open. Now, by the time we get towards 11 o'clock, there could potentially be some ice on the roads. So, if you could arrange it to be earlier, that would probably be better. But you're likely, from what we're seeing right now, if you're going to see freezing rain, it'll likely be ongoing by probably 5, 6 o'clock in the evening. And then it'll be accumulating by 11. Tommy asks, what is the percentage of seeing ice in the Vinton area? Let me go ahead and go back to full screen here. So the probability of seeing some amount of ice in the Vinton area is roughly about 45% right now. Now, the probability of seeing enough ice to cause problems in the Vinton area, that's roughly about 30% right now. So this, what we're looking at here is the probability of a 1/10 of an inch of ice accumulation. This is about where we start seeing significant issues, power outages, road closures, and the like. So those are all the probabilities you can see there. And the Vinton area is roughly about 30%. Lake Charles also about 30%. And you can find yourself on that map to see your specific percentage. Dustin and Kale is asking about what about Alexandria? Alexandria, on this graphic here, you're looking at about a 60% chance of seeing ice accumulation greater than a 1/10 of an inch. So roughly a 60% chance of seeing some significant impacts and potential road closures and potential power outages for that. So the higher risk, as far as the area that we're concerned with here, is up towards the Alexandria area and points further north up towards North Louisiana. Alice asks, when is the next update? We're going to do another update at 11 a.m. tomorrow morning. Braden asks, how are we looking in northern Jefferson County? Northern Jefferson County right now, the overall probability of seeing some amount of ice is roughly about 40% right now, say in the Beaumont area, and then about a 20% chance of seeing greater than a 1/10 of an inch of ice accumulation. So, you've got a decent shot of seeing some amount of freezing rain. The chance of there being enough freezing rain to cause significant impacts are about 20% or 2 in 10. Brooklyn asked about the biggest chance for power outage in Alexandria, Louisiana. Again, this graphic here is kind of giving you the probabilities. So we're looking at about a 60% chance of there being enough ice to potentially cause power outages in the Alexandria area. So I would strongly recommend having if you have an elderly, which you say you do, that relies on medical equipment that's electronic, I strongly recommend either having a generator or getting them to someplace that has a generator for the Saturday evening into a Sunday time frame, because we could very well see a power outage up that way. Amy asks, when would travel on 171 north to Shreveport potentially be safe after the storm? Tuesday? Probably Tuesday. It's going to depend on exactly how long those areas spend above freezing. If we see significant ice Saturday night into Sunday and those roads shut down, they're likely the earliest they're going to open back up would be Monday afternoon. If they don't open up Monday afternoon, then they won't be open till Tuesday afternoon. I can't say with certain. It depends on exactly how much ice you get and what the exact temperatures are going to be, but that's kind of the time frame we're looking at. Monica's asking about ice accumulation east of Jasper. Right now, you can see, let me go back to the other probability. The probability of seeing some amount of ice accumulation up towards Jasper is about 70%. The probability of seeing greater than 1/10 of an inch is about 45 to 50% right now. Again, the 1/10 of an inch is the amount at which we start seeing significant impacts, road closures, electrical outages, and stuff like that. Kevin asks, is the possibility that Beaumont, Jefferson County area go without electricity with this winter storm coming? It's possible. It's not likely, but it's not impossible. Again, looking at this graphic here, we're looking at about a 20% chance of at least 1/10 of an inch of ice accumulation, at which you could, at that point, you would start seeing some potential for power outages. So 20% is not likely, but it's not nothing either. John asks, is there any chance flights from New Orleans will be canceled Wednesday? Hazards traveling on I-10 eastbound next week. I think by Wednesday, the ice should be pretty well melted off by that point. So I don't expect there to be significant cancellations from flights out of New Orleans by Wednesday. As far as hazards traveling on I-10 next week, again, it's going to depend on exactly how much ice we see and exactly what those temperatures are going to be. So I can't tell you with absolute certainty or even good certainty exactly what to expect. Jerry asks, what's the chance for Moss Bluff? For Moss Bluff, the chance of seeing any amount of ice is roughly about 50%. And the chance of seeing greater than 1/10 of an inch, where you could potentially start seeing some significant hazards, is about 30%. Gator Grow says Lake Charles went down a little. In terms of probabilities, yes, it has come down a little bit, probably about 5 to 10% since this morning. Crystal says it's not getting cold until Monday, girl. No, that's not true. It's going to be getting cold Saturday morning is when we're going to get cold. Then we're going to get extremely cold by Saturday evening. Sarah says, I'm more concerned about the cold air afterwards. Have we ever been below freezing for this long? I don't remember. I know it's gotten this cold before, but I thought we got up to freezing or above for past events. It actually has. We have spent upwards of 3+ days below freezing before. In fact, last year, I believe, was one of them during the snow event. We spent a good 48, closer to probably 60 hours below freezing. So yeah, there is precedent for this. It has happened before. And I think it happened in 2021 as well. So there is, this has happened before. It is an extreme event, but it has happened before. Alice says, thank you, Donald, for keeping us updated. You're quite welcome, Alice. Happy to help when I can. Yeah, look at Courtney taking the words right out of my mouth. She said, yeah, last year in 2021. Yeah, that's exactly what I just said. Oh, Carly's taking a casino trip and wants to know if there's going to be ice in Lake Charles traveling from Moss Bluff. Well, that depends when you're driving home. If you're talking about late Saturday night, there is going to be the potential for some ice on roads, yes. My advice would be to do it earlier in the day if you can. Monica says, thank you. I hope after this I don't see you till hurricane season. I hope you don't see me during hurricane season. That would be fantastic, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it be great if you never saw me again? I know you'd miss me, but there are worse things, like a hurricane. Paula asked, should we expect power outages in Leesville? I would say yes. I would prepare for power outages in Leesville. That's not to say that it's definitely going to happen, but you're in this probabilities where you're looking at more likely than not seeing enough ice accumulation up that way to potentially see power outages. So it's not guaranteed by any means, but I'd say it's more likely than not at this point. Donna asks, is this like the one we had in 95, 96, I think? I don't know. I wasn't here in 95 and 96, so I can't really compare the two. I was a baby in 95 and 96. Well, not a baby, but I was like 10. That's close to a baby. Jake asks, how soon will the ice melt on Monday if we get any? That's going to depend on exactly when we get above freezing, and that's going to vary from location to location. But in general, I wouldn't expect it to even start melting until sometime after noon Monday. So we'll probably stay below freezing until at least noon. Then, depending on exactly where you are, we'll rise above freezing for a few hours between about noon and 5 or 6 o'clock. Then it's going to drop below freezing again. Alyssa is driving from Lake Charles to Mississippi on Monday afternoons. Do I think road be okay? I think road may be okay, but also may not be okay. The good news is you're going to know about it beforehand. So if the roads are going to close, they're going to close Sunday. So you can check to see if the roads are open or closed, before you even take off Monday. I can't say for sure one way or the other, but you'll know it well before you actually have to travel if you're traveling Monday. Okay, let's see. I've made it to the bottom of my list here. So let me see if I can. If you ask a question right now, you'll be first in line. Hurry up, ready, go. I'll wait. Here I am. Pacing. Not really. Just sitting here. But I'm waiting. Ask me a question. Do it. Do it now. We got 10 minutes and then I'm going away. Courtney asked, did everyone get their roux ready? That's not a bad question. I'm okay with it. Everybody needs a good bowl of gumbo for this kind of event. Jake says, I live in DeQuincy, but my wife will be induced on Monday in Lake Charles. Congratulations. But not sure what time. We are about to have a great baby girl. Congratulations. Maybe you can name her Elsa. No, I'm just kidding. Don't do that. She would never live that down. Unek is traveling to Houston Friday through Sunday. Thoughts? My thoughts are Friday, you probably aren't going to have any kind of problems. Other than we will be raining Friday, but it'll be all liquid. Sunday, if you're traveling back, you could potentially have some issues. Definitely check road conditions to see what kind of roads are open or closed before you travel back. There could be some ice on roads at that point. It's just going to depend. But you should be fine traveling on Friday as long as you're okay driving through some rain. Carly asked, what time Saturday will ice affect roads? Affect, not effect. That's the grammar Nazi in me coming out. We're going to be looking at, right now, probably not until early Saturday evening. So, as we get towards sundown and the temperatures begin to drop. So we'll be looking at probably 4 or 5 o'clock at the earliest. Right now, it's looking less likely. Earlier this morning, we were saying we could be looking at some ice accumulation earlier in the day. Now, right now, it looks like it's not going to be until probably 5, 6 o'clock Saturday evening for that rain to transition into freezing rain. And then after that, we could potentially see some ice accumulations. Michael Gonzalez has a question. What's your question, Michael? If you tell me your question, I will give you an answer. It may not be a good one. It may not be the right one. It may not be what you want to hear, but it will be one. Don is asking about the Silsbee and Fred area. Right now, again, we're looking at the graphic here is the probability of seeing greater than 1/10 of an inch, and you're looking at roughly about a 45% chance of seeing greater than 1/10 of an inch. And the 1/10 of an inch threshold is about when we start seeing significant impacts. So that's roughly what you're looking at. So slightly less likely than more likely, but just by a little bit. So about a 45% chance of seeing that amount. Now, as far as seeing any amount of freezing rain, you're looking at closer to a 70% chance of seeing some amount of freezing rain. Jake says, no, her name is Paisley Grace. Okay, phew, dodged a bullet there. Hannah has a Mardi Gras ball Saturday night. Is it okay to still go to it? I'll be driving from Moss Bluff to Lake Charles. Potentially not. Again, we're going to be looking at that freezing rain potentially beginning right around sundown or shortly thereafter. My advice to you is to be prepared to not go. If that freezing rain starts to develop, you'll notice it. You'll start to see the ice accumulation, and if you do see it, then obviously it would not be a good idea to be on the roads. More so because you could potentially get stuck there trying to come on the way back than going to it. Keith's going to eat jambalaya. Good for you, Keith. Get some jambalaya. Tell those gumbo enthusiasts where they can shove it. I like both, so I don't have a preference. Floyd asks, what is the certainty of the I-10 bridge icing over? I can't really give you a number on that. It could happen if we see some significant amounts of freezing rain accumulation, but I can't give you exact odds on it right now. Nikki says, where'd Nikki go? Nikki says, if y'all need to be reminded to bring people and pets in, y'all need more Jesus. Yes, this is definitely bring in your everything type of cold weather, really all the way through probably Wednesday at least. So yeah, if you have outdoor pets, give them some kind of shelter, give them a garage, give them something at least to get out of the freezing rain and to get out of that extreme cold, because this is going to be dangerous condition, dangerous kind of cold for everybody. Everybody who's not properly clothed anyway. So yeah, pets, people, that's homeless, elderly, check on them, make sure that they have some source of warmth. I know there are several, I think, warming centers opening up across the region this weekend. I don't have the exact locations or details on that, but I do know they're happening. So your local news stations would probably have more information about that. But yeah, this is not the place for anyone or anything to be outdoors this weekend or early next week. John and Missy asked everyone to remember that same thing. So there we go. Candy's ready to go eat some gumbo. So we got gumbo and we got jambalaya. Any other Cajun foods out there that we're prepping for? Teresa says, pick me, read mine. There you go. Just did. You're welcome. I live to serve. Give the people what they want. Talisha, how will it be driving to Houston on Tuesday for a flight? I think that most, if not all, of the ice should be melted off by then. It's going to depend, again, how far above freezing do we get Monday afternoon. If we get above freezing for more than 4 or 5 hours or so, I don't think we're going to have any more problems. But just like we've been talking about earlier, the freezing rain is going to end by Sunday evening. So if the roads are closed due to ice, you're going to know it well before Tuesday. Teresa asks, how much snow in Orange? 0. Zero snow in orange. We are not expecting any snow with this event, unfortunately. It would be a whole lot easier if this was a snow event, because the ice is dangerous. The snow is, it can be dangerous in and of itself, but it's not nearly as dangerous as the ice, because the ice forms on everything and it pulls things down. We would much rather snow. Alice is eating homemade vegetable soup. Not Cajun, still warm. I support that endeavor. Chad says, Laranger, Louisiana, 2 a.m. Sunday. Is it safe to drive, you think, for work? I'm a security officer. I can't say for sure at this point. We're just going to have to kind of take a wait and see exactly where that freezing rain develops. Again, we're still 2.5+ days away, so I can't tell you exactly where that freezing rain is going to be, or exactly whether you're going to be safe or not at this point. I wish I could, but I can't yet. Jake says, when will we be back in the 70s? In April. No, it'll be before then. It'll probably be next week. But at least through most of this week, we are going to be cold. Devin asks, what's the Ritter looking like for this weekend? Freezing, possibly icing. So we're looking at, see, that little pause right there was me trying to not make a snide remark in my head. But we're going to be looking at roughly about a 70-ish% chance of seeing some amount of ice accumulation in the DeRidder area, and about a 50% chance of seeing at least 1/10 of an inch of ice accumulation. So, we are going to be looking at some freezing rain that is going to lead to some ice accumulation, could result in some road closures, could result in some power outages. Either way, it's going to be very cold. Janelle says, my daughter lives in Denham Springs, Louisiana. Will the ice be bad there? Denham Springs is actually covered by our office to the east over in Slidell, but you can kind of see, or at least very close to it, right on the right side of my map here. We're looking at, let me see if I can go back to the other graphic here. So you're looking at approximately a 30 to 40% chance of seeing some amount of freezing rain in the Denham Springs area, and then about a 20% chance of seeing greater than 1/10 of an inch. So yeah, there's a decent chance for some ice accumulation. The likelihood of seeing enough ice accumulation over there to cause significant impacts like power outages and road closures, only about 20% right now. Josh asks, are we expecting hazardous driving conditions Monday morning? Potentially, depending on where you are. Again, if the freezing rain, if there's going to be any, is going to come to an end Saturday evening. So if there's ice on the road Saturday evening, that the roads are, I'm not Saturday evening, Sunday evening, I'm sorry. If there's ice on the road Sunday evening, then it's going to stay on the road through at least midday Monday. Robert says, when are you going to announce your partnership for custom black shirts? These are not custom black shirts. These are standard issue black shirts. I should get a sponsorship though, huh? Patricia says, is the time below freezing duration still going to be 14 hours, or do you think that'll extend to be longer? Well, again, it's going to depend on where you're at. But yeah, we are looking at long duration periods below freezing. The 14, I'm just going to use Lake Charles because that's where the 14 is. That's just from Saturday to Sunday. As we go from Sunday to Monday, look at that, 24 consecutive hours below freezing. So that's all day and all night. And we're probably going to be looking at long duration freezes again, Monday night into Tuesday morning, Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, and maybe even Wednesday night into Thursday morning. So we're going to be looking at very long periods of below freezing temperatures where we may only get above freezing for a couple of hours during the afternoon. And that's going to be kind of a best case scenario. There are going to be areas that are not going to rise above freezing for potentially 48 or more hours. Penny asks, how much ice accumulation does it take to cave in your roof? Well, that's going to depend on the construction of your roof, the slope of your roof. It's been known to happen. I don't think it's particularly common. It would take quite a bit, I would think. A well-constructed roof on a single-family residence, you'd probably have to get over a half an inch at least, if not more than that. But water's heavy, so that's what it is. I mean, it's essentially, you could wind up with a crack in your roof without it necessarily completely caving in. But yeah, it's possible. It would take quite a bit, though. I don't have an exact number for you, though, but I think it would probably be over a half inch. Sarah says, okay, I'm a transplant here. Buying out stores is not the way. We aren't freezing over for months. You're absolutely right. My Walmart shopper told me it was a madhouse in there. Was very little left at the DeRidder Walmart. Don't do this. Just get enough to get you till the roads thaw, so there's enough for everyone to survive until Monday. Good advice. That's I can't disagree with any of that. Essentially, yeah, you're going to need at least a couple of days, and it's just in case. Not everybody is going to be stranded. But there is the possibility of some road closures, especially up towards DeRidder, Alexandria, those areas. So preparation is good, but you don't need to go overboard with it because, yeah, it's not going to be you're not going to be stranded for weeks. We're a matter of a couple of days. So yeah, just kind of keep that in mind. Tammy asks, is there a chance that we'll lose power in Vinton? There is a chance, but it's fairly low chance. So, again, the graphic you're looking at here is the probability of seeing greater than 1/10 of an inch of rain. I mean, not rain, of freezing rain. That ice accumulation is what I'm trying to say. Freezing rain, that is ice accumulation. So you're looking at roughly about a 30% chance of that. And that is the point at which we start to see power outages and road closures. So right now you're looking at roughly about a 30% chance, if not a little bit lower than that. Jake says, tell Mr. Kent Kuiper I said hello. Kent Kuiper actually retired from this office a while back. He's been out of here for a couple of years. So although he I'm just recognizing his son named Jared, yeah. But he's actually been retired here for a couple of years, and he's very happy in his retirement. He does call us up periodically though to give us some hard times for still having to be here, as do all the retired folks around here. They like to call us up and kind of rub it in a little bit, but they've earned it. So I'm going to do the same thing one day, God willing. Josh says, are you currently concerned about the travel conditions on I-10 Saturday afternoon? No, not really. If we're going to be looking at ice accumulation right now, it's probably not going to be until 4 or 5 o'clock, maybe even a little bit later than that on Saturday. So Saturday afternoon, anytime before about sunset, I don't expect there to be any problems on I-10. All right, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up. We have been going on for a little over an hour, so enough for me. Hope it's enough for you. Hopefully you got something out of this. If you have a question that I missed, feel free to send us a direct message on Facebook, Twitter, X now. I still call it Twitter, or Instagram. You can also email me directly. My email's on your screen there, donald.jones@noaa.gov, NOAA.gov. You can also give us a call. Our phones are actually off right now, but they are on 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., 337-477-5285, and we'll be happy to answer your questions during the day for that. We have to turn them off in the evenings now because of the short staffing, so we don't have the manpower to answer them all the time anymore. But we are happy to answer your questions on social media at any time as we're able to. So feel free to send us a message that way, or you can send me an email directly. I'll be around here for the next several days through the duration. I'll be here all weekend. So if you have any questions that I missed, feel free to throw them out there, and I'll be happy to answer them that way. We are going to do another one of these briefings again tomorrow morning. We'll plan to do it at 11 a.m. We're probably not going to do one tomorrow evening because I've got a previous engagement. I've got to be out of the office for a while tomorrow evening, but we are going to do another one tomorrow morning, and we will continue to keep you updated on any changes all the way up to and through the event. So be on the lookout for that. We are going to be looking at some more rain here and going into tonight and tomorrow. There's a look at our radar right now. I said I was going to show that at the beginning, but here it is right here at the end. You can see there is quite a bit of shower still out there. This is going to continue. Again, this is associated with a coastal low. This is not the cold front. This is not associated with what we've been talking about, but it is going to provide some rain here both tonight and continuing through the day tomorrow. So kind of keep that in mind. If you have any preparations to make outdoors, you're going to be dodging some showers through at least tomorrow evening. I think we are going to get a lull in that activity, though, tomorrow evening into Friday. So there is going to be a break in the precipitation before the extreme cold comes Friday night into Saturday. So stay warm, stay safe, stay dry. We'll talk to you again tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. Go get some gumbo.